everyone, and welcome to the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, joined as always by Joe Resinello. Once more, dear friends, let us go into the breach. Hello again, everyone, and welcome to the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, joined as always by Joe Resinello. And once more, dear friends. Mention a lot is in the news this week about with me. Even if he turned around and said, look, Nadler, there's no collusion, there's no obstruction. I know you guys are trying, and if he completely shut them down, okay, they're still going to turn around, spin it however they want, and they're going to find something else. It's just that simple. I mentioned to Joe, they'll find a dead body somewhere, and they'll say that Donald Trump was responsible for killing that person. Therefore, what are the ways? The only thing that's acceptable to the left when it comes to Donald Trump, he either's got to resign, he's got to be impeached, he's got to die. Don't discount that. He's got to die, or you got to beat him in 2020. All right. So this is going to be ongoing. Okay. And so we're not really giving a whole lot of placing a whole lot of importance.
Well, I think it's just embarrassing. It's just an embarrassment.
Well, see, that's the thing,
they bring it back again. It was an embarrassment in the first place. $26 million spent on nothing, and then they basically doubled down again. And frankly, they look like fools. They look like fools.
But don't they make us look like fools?
Well,
at the end of the day, they can't accept the fact that you have a legitimately elected president of the United States, and they just like little children that they are. They just can't accept it, but they make us look like fools.
To be honest with you, it's a coup. It's a coup to usurp an elected president.
Right.
It's just what it is.
They do. Did you mention last week about projection, Freudian projection? This is a perfect example of that, okay? They are always doing that in many, many cases on many, many issues. What they do is they project on you what they're really all about. So you're the fascist, but in the meantime, they do fascist things and all these different things. And Joe just made a good point. We've grown up with this. We grew up with Oliver Stone conspiracy theories and all these things coming out of Hollywood. The fact is that the totalitarians are on the left. Those who cannot accept democracy, all right, and a democratic result, which is the election of the president of the United States, in this case, Donald Trump, they can't accept it. But they'll project on you that you want to subvert democracy or undermine democracy. But who's the ones doing it? Donald Trump, under our constitutional system, is the legitimately elected president of the United States.
Dispute.
So was Barack Obama. So was George Bush. So was Papa Bush. So was Bill Clinton. So all the presidents. So the bottom line is this. They just simply project, okay, and they want to undermine and they want to uproot our democratic system by trying to get this guy out of office because they just can't stand that they lost.
Well, like I said, I think they looked foolish. They looked absolutely foolish this week. They doubled down on something that was dumb in the first place.
Right.
$26 million spent. We spent the money, and then they tried again, and they looked like fools.
Right. Yeah. So, and that's pretty much as far as Thumb says. That's all we have to say about that.
Well, there it is.
All right, because
there it is.
Nothing really much more to say. Donald Trump will be elected president again in 2020, and we'll be having this very same conversation after that election, and they'll find a new scandal for him. So we just accept it. We're talking about bigger issues. Donald Trump's president, and that's the bottom line. We're talking about big issues here at the front line with Joe and Joe Pasillo and Joe Resinello. Let's go into that breach.
And remember, every Sunday at 8 o'clock, we're here. So please check us out and tell a friend. Our first segment tonight takes us to New York City. There's a lot of talk on social media regarding some police officers that got drenched with water and some objects were thrown at them. I think it was reprehensible, actually. It's very sick. It's sick that police officers can't react to something like that. I mean, basically, the mayor had a very blasé statement after basically this has been floating around social media all week. I want to read you what the PBA, if anyone doesn't know what that stands for, it's Police Benevolent Association. They basically have put the blame on lawmakers, and the gentleman who is the president of the PBA, his name is Patrick Lynch. This is what he had to say about it. He said, our anti-cop lawmakers have gotten their wish. The New York Police Department is now frozen. This should terrify people. It should terrify people. I go to New York City every day. That should terrify you.
You know who should be terrified more is those people in minority communities when the cops don't do their job because the cops are afraid to arrest the black kid who's about to assault another black kid for fear of being called a racist. And what's he saying? By the way, you just came up with a great name for de Blasio. We're going to call him Blase de Blasio.
Well, there it is.
All right.
Let me go on with what he said, just to go on with what Mr. Lynch said. He said, disorder controls the streets, and elected leaders refuse to allow us to take them back. The politicians may not care about dangerous levels of chaos in our neighborhoods, but police officers and decent New Yorkers should not be forced to suffer.
Yeah.
I think he hits it spot on. What you just said, actually, what we were talking about at work. If you're a cop and you know that your administration isn't behind you, are you going to risk your pension? Are you going to risk being blamed? I'm going to be honest with you. You're going to turn the other way. This is actually hurting the citizen. And like I said, this should terrify New Yorkers. New York is a big place. And there was a time, I'm 49 years old. New York was a dangerous place. There was a time when you were in the subway system and frankly, people would get mugged.
Yeah.
So that was the 70s and 80s.
Right.
It could return.
And the reaction to the person who actually did something about it, who was Rudy Giuliani, was what is the tactic? Giuliani, he basically had a policy, in that city where his view was that, those who are committing small crimes usually are people who are also committing larger crimes. He was proven correct. Okay. And what did they do? They called him a racist. Gee, there's a shock. But you want to know what? Crime went down in New York City. Now, again, the flip side is I'm not all in favor of the Disneyfication of Times Square, but I will say this. The M&M store and all the things in Times Square are vastly, infinitely better than when we were in our 20s. So Times Square was completely pornography. From 8th Avenue and 42nd Street to Times Square, everything in between. There wasn't a movie theater there. Everything was porn. Every marquee had XXX. Now, does de Blasio want to go back to those days? Because that's where he's bringing this city.
But also, I think the criminals feel empowered.
Well, wouldn't you?
Absolutely. I mean, if you get away with dumping water, and then, by the way, they threw a bucket at the police.
They hit the cop in the head.
With the bucket.
Now, this cop looked like he probably wouldn't be hurt too much by a bucket, but nonetheless, you cannot assault the police officer, and no matter how you slice it, that's assault. If Joe or I did that, you know what happens? Handcuffs.
If you're lucky.
No, but that's what I'm saying. So I think it was a very sad day for New York, and citizens should be terrified. They should be terrified because, you know, there's a lot of bad elements in New York City. New York is a very big city, contains all types, the rich, the poor, the good and the bad. And I'll be truthful with you, those who are a little bit older, like myself, who knew New York City, do you remember the movie Escape from New York?
Yeah.
Do you remember do you remember the movie The Warriors? These are movies about criminals,
Well, right,
that basically ran the city.
right. Well, the thing is too, what we have to understand is that this is what the people like on the left, like Blase de Blasio, this is what they push. They I guess it seems to me they want a breakdown of law and order. I mean, that's all I could see. The more shocking video was one with the kid on the subway who is yelling at the cop. Okay. He's yelling at the two cops and he's making fun of them. He's mocking them. It's like, is this what it's come to? Because if that kid was, let's say, looking to mug me, let's say, or if he was getting in my face, I want those two cops to arrest him. But it seems to me that that's not what's going to happen, or that's the road that they're on under this leadership. Just like the president of the PBA said, Patrick Lynch, under this leadership, these lawmakers are setting the conditions for this. I don't care who you are. You don't do anything to a cop. You don't throw anything at a cop. You don't mouth off to a cop. And I've mouthed off to cops. So I'm not, I have been known to do that. And I've learned in a very hard lesson, you don't do that, okay? You keep your mouth shut, you say, yes, officer, and you keep it moving. They made these cops look like I don't even know what. Karen just texted in or commented, it completely disgusted her. That's the proper response. Two cops walking down the street as people are throwing water all over them. It's disgusting.
Well, actually, it just terrifies me because I go into the city every day.
Right.
If the cops, listen, if you don't respect cops, why would they respect me? Cops have guns. I don't have a gun. I'm in the subway. I'm in the path. I walk through the streets. I mean, it should terrify New Yorkers. Clearly, they don't feel that their bosses are behind them. Their hands are tied behind their back. Clearly. Well,
didn't Blase de Blasio, didn't he get up there again recently and reiterate that same lie that he told a couple of years ago about he fears for his black son's safety? His son Dante, I think is his name.
Yes.
He fears for his. He went and perpetuated that lie again. Your son has nothing to fear from cops if your son is not breaking the law or about to break the law. It's that simple, Mayor de Blasio. But what you've done is you've made people like us now potential victims because the perps are going to look at us and say, the cops aren't going to do anything. There's a guy who looks like he makes some money. You work in a bank, right? Don't you have to dress decently to go to work? And he's in, let's say, for argument's sake, the subway, and somebody says, I'll go and rob him. What's the cop going to do? Nothing. Do you see how things break down if you have this type of disrespect, this lack of respect for authority?
Well, I think it's just indicative of the culture. The culture just doesn't have respect for authority. People don't respect anything anymore. They don't respect the law. They don't respect Constitution. They don't respect families. They don't respect religious liberty. They don't respect anything. And this is just indicative of what's going on in our culture. And frankly, it's sad. It's a breakdown of society. Believe me, you don't want anarchy. You don't want anarchy.
But it doesn't it seem, see, we always have to ask ourselves, what is the end game of this? You know, like a guy like de Blasio is going to preside over a disaster the way Dinkins did, and then there'll be a reaction against that, and you'll get, let's say, the next manifestation of Rudy Giuliani, who's going to come back and restore law and order. But in the meantime, why would they do this? Now, this is an open question. I don't pretend to know the answer, let's say. But it does seem the left wants a certain amount of anarchy. We mentioned it before about San Francisco, the whole societal breakdown. Disrespect and lack of respect of the authority that police officers have is part and parcel of that social breakdown. You have to respect the police. That's it. That's part of what we do.
They can't be obedient to anything. They have this idea of freedom. It's unbridled. Freedom isn't unbridled. Just like in anything, you have a family. There are rules in a house. Just like when you were in school, there are rules in a house. You couldn't just get up and walk around the classroom. In anything, in a job, there are rules. You can't do certain things. Some things are not acceptable. This is just life.
Right.
This is what it means to be an adult. And they cannot accept that. They refuse to accept it.
Well, does it ever strike you that, in other words, these people who don't seem to want any rules, but they're so quick to impose 1 billion rules on you? You know what I mean? They have a worldview. They want to impose their worldview. They want to enact legislation, let's say, that puts the clamp down on you. But in the meantime, for what? They would probably love laws that would arrest us for doing something so brazen as the Frontline with Joe and Joe, where we're actually trying to hash out these things and talk about these things and spread truth in this culture and in our society. That they'd have no problem imposing that rule. But when a kid throws a bucket at a cop and the cop turns around and says, put your hands against the wall and spread your legs because you're under arrest, they would say, well, no. That cop is white. That kid is black. The kid's, because of poverty or whatever, systematic racism, whatever that means, had a right to throw the bucket at the cop. So it's not like they're devoid of rules. They just want to take away the basically the commonly accepted rules, like being respectful to police officers, and replace that with their own set of rules.
But here's the thing. It works against them because, again, if I'm a cop, say I'm 15 years on the job, me and you are partners, and I know that my pension's on the line, if there's something that's a little gray that I think that could work against me, frankly, I'm just going to walk away.
You work with the gray?
I'm just going to walk away because at the end of the day, you're not going to risk your livelihood. You're just not.
Right.
So it's going against them.
Right. No, I know. But then you always have to ask yourself, is it by design? In other words, do they want the cops to stand down? Do they want a certain level of chaos, anarchy, violence, let's say? We know in some cases in other cities where they allowed violence to go on, okay? Where remember the mayor, I think it was when in the Freddie Gray case, I think when the people in Baltimore, I think it was, where they were protesting in the street, and the mayor came out and says, oh, and the protesters, and we're going to give them room to do what they want. No. These are people that are breaking things. They're looting stores. They're breaking windows. They're breaking property. They're going after people. No. They don't have the room to do that. You don't give them the room to do that. You arrest them.
But then the thing is, the funny thing is to have this view, now we're a fascist. That's like they think. I can remember when Giuliani did all this stuff. And frankly, I'll be truthful with you. Even if you dislike the guy, I live here. I live in the shadows of New York City. I grew up here. I've been going to the city since I was a little boy. New York City was a rough place, and you could do anything. You could drink in the streets. When I was a kid, we'd just go into the city and just drink, walking around, open containers, do anything.
Only drink.
But Giuliani could change everything. He absolutely changed the whole dynamic. And I can remember the news putting pictures as if he had an Adolf Hitler mustache, as if he did something. He actually did something good.
Yeah.
Right.
He did something good in the city, and people didn't give him the credit. Frankly, they call him, like I said, a fascist.
Call him fascist.
I mean, why? Because he has rules?
Right.
Rules are a part of life. Rules are a part of being an adult. You cannot have a society without rules. You cannot have a government without rules.
Right.
And if you don't like that, frankly, I'm going to tell you right now, you're not an adult.
Yeah, but you know what they used to call people who, let's say, promoted this type of thing? Criminals. Criminals don't like rules, okay? And that's the bottom line. And they don't want to hear that. In other words, they're actually trying to promote criminality, because if you say to the cops they can't arrest you for certain crimes, or they can't act in a certain way to prevent a crime or anything like that, then you're just promoting criminality. Because like I said earlier, that's what's going to happen. If the perpetrator or potential perpetrator does not feel like the cops are going to do anything to him or her, okay, then they're going to feel like they have license to do whatever they want. I heard one theory was that one of the things the left wants to do is like, now again, this is going to sound conspiracy theory-ish, okay, but I wouldn't doubt it for a second, that what the left really wants is they want the destruction of all local police forces. In other words, all local cops, whether it be municipal, county, state, and replace it with a national police force, okay? Basically have an FBI with a lot more people and a lot more guns, and they basically run everything. They run law enforcement, local law enforcement from Washington. knowing the way the left operates and how they like everything centralized, I wouldn't be shocked at that, because every time you have a sheriff, let's say, in a county, whether it's Essex County or Bergen or wherever, okay, that actually enforces the law or is very outspoken, of course that person is a racist, a fascist, as you alluded to, the way they try to paint Giuliani as a fascist. Because if they can control law enforcement on a national level, then they can impose their will. Again, they have their rules, not the same as ours, but they have their rules that they want to impose on all of us too. That was one interesting theory I heard, because nobody can doubt, and the one reason why I give it a little bit of credence, nobody could doubt that police departments are under assault. Okay, the only difference is usually it's under assault from the outside. Now in New York City, with this particular case, the police department is under assault from the mayor and the city council. Okay. And another thing about de Blasio, too, you should realize, and we've said this before, it's the cops and the union people, the firemen and all those people in New York City that put the Democrats in office because of their union contracts. I wonder how the cops are going to react to him now in the next, let's say, mayoral election.
I think this was a nail in his coffin. This is a mark. Honest to God, I don't think this is going to go down on his legacy as a good one.
Well, the thing is, ask yourself this. Legacy for Bill de Blasio. I understand what you're saying. I think to say that he'll even have a legacy.
No, but like I'm saying what he'll be known for, what he's remembered for.
Right. He'll be known for being David Dinkins Part 2. Okay. Because remember, David Dinkins, he allowed for riots to continue and everything also, then told the cops to stand down, all right, at one point. De Blasio seems to be doing the same thing. Hopefully New York will react to that. Hopefully New York will put in elect a sane mayor who's going to reestablish law and order. Because like you said, we both work in the city. We have friends and family that work in the city. I'm not, let's say, altogether 100% secure in my person as I'm walking the block and a half after I park my car and walk to work. Okay. And funny enough, you're saying this, one of the reasons why I park my car when I go to work, because I was taking public transportation, because my wife follows all this stuff. And she said to me, she goes, I don't want you at Port Authority. I'm nervous. My wife wouldn't sleep. She goes, please drive your car. Please see if you could get a good deal on parking, because going to Port Authority, and let's say I work sometimes very late at night and I get out 12 or 1 o'clock in the morning. Port Authority doesn't look like the greatest place in the world to be walking through. And again, I only say this because I'm just a normal guy, but I fear. I keep my eyes open. I'm looking all around me. And the thing is, you should do that anyway. But with the cops being afraid to do their job, then you really have to be much, much, much more aware. So he's doing a disservice to this city. Again, I don't know what his ultimate intentions are. He was running for president. Now he's not running for president. He got up there just to...
He's not running anymore.
We have a choir here today. One of our buddies, he's sitting behind the camera. Michael's with us today. It shows you how much you're growing. So he had to come in and sit in on the show. But yeah, so that's where New York City's at. Hopefully they come to their senses and do something about it.
Well,
Hopefully.
they should.
Hopefully.
Because like I said, it should scare you. If you go in and out of New York City, if the cops are afraid to do their job, it should scare citizens.
It should. Joe Campo chimed in. He said, what would happen if someone threw water on Mayor de Blasio? Joe, I'm going to go out on a limb. If I threw water on Mayor de Blasio, I'm getting arrested. Okay? Again, it's selective enforcement of the law. De Blasio, I mean, just to put a finer point on him, anybody who even listens to this guy's complete hypocrite. He talks about all about Green New Deals and everything like that. He wants a retrofit. Here's one that I wonder how he's going to get around this. Okay, he wants every building owner, every landlord in New York City to retrofit their buildings over the next 10 years to comply with the Green New Deal that doesn't even exist yet, okay? And everybody's just saying the same thing. Is that a joke? Do you know how much money that's going to cost these people, okay? One of his biggest voting blocks in New York City, okay, are Jewish people. They own a lot of those buildings. I wonder what they're going to do. Because you think they're going to vote for a Green New Deal where all of a sudden they get a bill for $1 million because they had to retrofit one of their buildings, okay? But see, he doesn't care. He just seems like he just says things and doesn't wonder how that's going to affect the people that may or may not vote for him. It really is nuts. This is almost surreal. Bill de Blasio's administration is like taking a good long look at the most surreal Salvador Dali painting. You look at it and go, What the hell's going on there?
Well,
and that's what you do
in
with New York City.
The people elected him. So as my mother would say, you get what you deserve.
Get what you deserve. Anyway, we have PM.
And my mother says, look to the guy who you think most of and do what he does.
So Michael chiming in again. Let's just give a quick shout out. PM, Artie, Joe checking in, Vinny from over in Hoboken. We got Sean with us. Eddie's with us. Eddie coming in from Florida. Eddie just won his bodybuilding contest. Big shout out to Eddie. We got Karen with us. Don, my baby's out there chiming in. Artie, I'm sure, is happy because we got rid of the books. So that's good. And Jonathan up in Toronto. Jonathan joined us. So let's keep it moving, because the more you talk about Bill de Blasio, the more you really need a brioche. So let's keep it going.
Okay. Remember, you're with the Frontline with Joe and Joe every Sunday at 8 o'clock. Please join us and tell a friend. Our next segment, Bernie Sanders has proven, Joe, what I have said for years. He gave us an economics 101 course. Basically, what he's doing is he is paying his staffers $15 an hour. He was one of the largest proponents of raising the minimum wage. Now, this sounds good on paper. However, this is something I've been saying for the last 2 years. When you raise wages without real growth, that causes hours of employees to decrease. And guess what Bernie Sanders is doing? He's decreasing hours
for his staffers.
He's cutting hours. This is something that is economics 101.
Vinny, he told all the capitalists that that it was wrong for you to cut their hours. And Bernie Sanders is doing the same thing. He's going to pay them the $15 an hour, but then he told his main people, cut all their hours. You're the capitalist now, Bernie. Now you get it. You see when hard economic reality hit you right in your crusty old socialist face? Do you see what happens? Okay, now you're paying those people $15 an hour, but now you're cutting their hours.
And this is a reality. I'm going to tell you right now. I've been saying this forever. Either people who don't understand this, either, to be honest with you, are naive, like a 16-year-old.
Right.
Someone who may not work in a business, a corporation, or frankly, they just may just not know. I don't know. Okay, but let me explain something to it. I'm going to break it down from the perspective of McDonald's. I own a McDonald's. When the government forces me to pay my employees, now this is not just me, anyone, any person. What's going to happen is this. If you have 7 cashiers and you're forcing me to pay them $15 an hour, you're now going to have 4 cashiers.
Right.
And you're going to wait longer. You see, people are under this misconception that people on the top are going to take the money that they get and share it. It doesn't work that way. Business, listen, I didn't make up the rules. This is the way it is. This is life. We're not in heaven, okay? And this was something Barack Obama didn't get. He taxed corporations at 35%. Guess what happens when you tax corporations at 35%? They fire people. And the people who get fired aren't always executives. They're like me, who's trying to feed his family, who has 3 children and a wife, who's a regular guy. And it's everyone. It goes from the janitor to the clerk to the middle of the row guy to the big guy. And they sell this to people, and people actually buy it. Oh, it's great. We're going to pay them $15 an hour. Guess what? It's a net gain of 0, because this is the deal. The ratio of pay to the ratio of hours worked always nets out at 0. So if you're paying someone more, you're going to cut their hours. Right. This is common sense, and Bernie just proved it. He just proved it. And people still will be like, yay, $15 an hour. It's a net gain of 0. If anything, it hurts the common person.
He just morphed from a socialist to a capitalist in a matter of a week. Okay, because he doesn't. Now, you want to talk about economic growth. You want to talk about real wage growth. Joe said something very important. And one of the things that we try to highlight all the time about our current capitalist system, which has a lot of holes in it, okay? Because we want people to get paid better. Joe used the proper word, organic wage increases, not wage increases that are imposed by the government. You know how you get some more organic wage increases? Joe, you want to piss some people off? Should we piss some people off? Okay? You Chamber of Commerce evangelical conservatives, okay? Stop employing Mexicans coming across the border. Support Donald Trump to secure that border. So all these people don't come in and take jobs from Americans who will demand more money, okay? But instead you have all these people coming in and they're willing to work for $8 an hour instead of the guy who rightfully should be getting paid $15 or $16 an hour. How about you promote families, okay? So women, instead of having to go out into the workforce, okay, will stay home and raise their children. Here's my point, Joe. Let businesses have to compete for labor, and then you'll get organic wage increases. But when you're flooding the labor market with illegal immigrants and people who don't necessarily want to be in the workforce, many women do, but many women don't. But they're forced to be in the workforce because they have to put food on the table. Set the conditions where people will come out of the workforce and have a more limited labor supply. And then you know what the corporations have to do? Well, we want to hire you, Mr. Pasillo, and we'll pay you $20 an hour. I say, yeah, but the other guy was just an interview with, he'll pay me $23. So you're going to have to pay me $24 if you want me to come work for you. Then you go in the next interview and the other guy says to you, well, you know, I can offer you $28 an hour. They have to compete for your labor. That's the real problem, solution to the problem. Not your stupid government mandates that tell Starbucks or McDonald's they have to pay $15 an hour. It's superficial and it won't work, and it'll lead to what Joe was just saying and what the socialist Bernie Sanders just proved. Okay? Organic wage increases, or else hours get cut, and when hours get cut, people in real dollars are taking home less money, and that's a problem.
Let me parallel another example of the same basic thought pattern. You know, when they're talking about debt relief from college loans, they're going to spread that debt to you. You're going to pay for it. Do you think that that's just going to disappear and the government's going to pay for that out of the goodness of their heart? They're going to spread it out. You're going to pay for it anyway. Mm-hmm. You're going to pay for it anyway. And this is where I just say to people, are we adults? Are we simply adults? Are we 16 in high school thinking about as if the world works this way? Listen, I want the world to be, you know, a better place, and I frankly work for it to be so. However, there's certain realities as an adult. There's certain economic realities. This is one of them. And this is a man, and this is where I want the people, if you're a Democrat and you're listening to this show, please listen to what we're talking about. I'm not making this up. He's actually proving my point. I've been saying this forever. Mm-hmm. I can remember having an argument with someone on social media when they were talking about this like 4 years ago. And I was like, I'll pay people $50 an hour. But the market does not determine that wage. The market is what determines the wage. For instance, you could be a great janitor. You could be the best janitor on the earth. You could be like, I'm the best janitor in New York City. Janitors don't make $100,000. The market determines the wage, not the government.
But that was my point to you earlier is yes, you're right. But I do have a problem where it is when you have all these extra factors when it comes to what's driving those wages. And that's why I mentioned about so many people being in the workforce. Yes, the hiring of illegal aliens to pick apples or grapes out in Napa Valley. All the libs own the wineries out in California. They have no problem paying those Mexicans and those people from south of the border all sorts of crap wages. Okay, they have no problem with it. When you have a market that's flooded, then that market that you're talking about, the free market for wages, okay, then it gets obscured, is my point. If you had a workforce, like I said, two factors, I know will piss off the feminists and I know and a few other people, but I don't really care. In other words, when you have tens of thousands of people going into California and the southern states and doing farming and all that, and these jobs, and you're flooding the market. And yes, when women can't stay home or feel like they can't financially stay home and raise kids because they got to get out and go to work, then there's just quite frankly more. These are just two factors. There are others, okay? But then what that does is it drives wages down. And then, again, we're free marketeers, but this is a problem with policy and the way we do things, that we're supposed to set the conditions for workers to get out into a workforce where that market wage is significantly higher. where we talked about, let's say, the auto industry, where the auto industry will not have a problem paying that man $40 an hour plus benefits and vacation and the whole 9 yards, and a good package where he could make his career working for an automobile company, and he could do and provide for all his family's needs. And mom can stay home, okay? Because there's less people in the workforce and they have to compete. So you're right. The market does determine the wage, but the market itself has been obstructed and obscured by all these other factors. And that's one thing that politicians don't do anything about. Right and left. Like I said, Joe always says, we don't look left, we don't look right, we look up. Well, let me tell you something. It's wrong. It's wrong for these conservatives, okay? These pro-business Chamber of Commerce conservatives to not want to do something about that border because they just want cheap labor. It's a matter of right and wrong, and they're wrong for doing that.
And I'm going to give you another little economics lesson. When Donald Trump became the president, what did he do? He lowered the corporate tax from 35 to 21%, I think it was 21%, but it's in the low 20s. At the end of the day, what happened? Places like Walmart, what did they do? They gave money to their employees.
Yes.
Why? Because it was real growth to the bottom line. You see, that's how wages are driven.
Mm-hmm.
It's driven. People don't give people money out of the goodness of their heart. If you haven't learned that as an adult, I don't know what to tell you.
Right.
I mean, your parents do that. You go to work and basically you provide a service and you're paid.
That's right.
That's how it works.
Right, and it's not supposed, like you said, it's not supposed to be charity. I don't want my boss to give me anything out of the goodness of his heart. In fact, he doesn't have to like me at all.
But it doesn't work that way.
It doesn't work that. He needs to respect my dignity as a worker, provide the conditions by which I can make some money and I can provide my family. I don't really care if he likes me, and I'm not asking him for anything. It's a mutually beneficial arrangement. He hires me according to do the things he wants me to do and the job he wants me to perform. And if I do it and do it well, he continues to employ me. It's a business relationship, okay? I don't want his, I don't, like I said, I don't really care if he cares about me, but he's at the very least going to do that.
But that's why a president, you see, this is where, frankly, Barack Obama didn't get it. Or if he got it, he was selling people a bag of goods that didn't get it.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you overtax the corporation, the corporation takes it out on you.
Mm-hmm.
It takes it out on the regular person. You're not getting the man. The man always gets paid.
That's the truth.
Trust me.
Yeah.
I worked for the man. I've worked there for 2 decades in banking. I get it. I know how the man works. You're only hurting the worker. All you do when you, and it's not all rich people. You see, this is the misconception. People, I can see it right now. Oh, screw this guy. He's a banker. I'm not rich. I'm just trying to save money for my kids and take care of them.
Right.
And there's a ton of people like me. By the way, it's everybody. It's people who sell suits. It's people who work at McDonald's. It's people who work at Walmart. It's people who sell pizzas.
Mm-hmm.
When you tax people too much, the employee suffers.
That's right.
And you have to walk a finer
And
line.
and the customer.
You'll wait on more lines.
This is a business
Your
after all.
service will go down. You see, Barack Obama, either he probably got it, but at the end of the day, he was funding his programs because he's trying to help you.
He's an ideologue.
By the way, poverty went up under Barack Obama, particularly in the black community.
Don't say that. Don't say that too loud because CNBC will call you a racist.
But this is true. So I'm just telling you, if you're the president now, you can't have unfettered capitalism. You do have to tax the corporation. You do have to regulate the corporation.
But
by the way, I am a
reasonably-
regulator, just so you know. I'm not going to tell you where I work, but I am a regulator at a bank. At the end of the day, you have to do those things, but it has to be more of a middle of the road. You have to strike a better balance. Barack Obama was way out of line. By the way, that's why the growth was constantly mediocre at best, if not non-existent. He didn't get it. He didn't get it.
But then the funny part about it is the frustrating part about Barack Obama. Then he tried to sell us on the idea that he got it perfectly and that we really shouldn't expect more than 1 to 1.5% growth because that's unrealistic. Welcome to the new normal. Those jobs are not coming back. Okay, let me tell you something. You could love or hate Donald Trump. that middle road that you're talking about, the middle of the road, that middle ground you're talking about, Donald Trump gets it. Donald Trump knows there's some businesses that are just not going to pay that well. I mean, they're entry-level jobs, fast food workers, things like that. They're not meant. Christian just is chiming in. Hey, Christian from Florida, good friend of mine, was talking about, these jobs are not meant to be a living wage. Okay, so certain jobs don't pay that much. They're meant to teach, particularly young kids. That's who works at McDonald's, Burger King. Teach them the value of a paycheck, to be responsible and accountable and diligent, and all the things that work teaches you. Okay, but Donald Trump gets that. But when it comes to the jobs, and everybody knows what I mean by the jobs, blue collar manufacturing, Donald Trump gets it right off the bat. Screw the left and screw the right. Okay, you're not going to allow Chinese steel to come to the United States and our steel workers get screwed. Just as an example, you're not going to rip us off Canada and Mexico. No offense, Jonathan Ross. I know you're in Toronto, but you're not going to rip us off. No, we're renegotiating NAFTA. He gets that middle ground. He understands it. Okay, make it. It's not just wanting people to get paid more and not having a solution for how they're going to get paid more outside of making sure you regulate them and mandate that they give them $15 an hour. All right, like crusty old socialist Bernie Sanders.
Well, he just proved it. He's actually doing what will happen if he's elected. I want people who don't support these ideas to think. Think about what he's doing. This is a small microcosm of what will happen on a larger scale. Nothing is free. We talked about this on the show. Nothing is free. The government takes it from you. They take it from taxes. And it's not just the rich people.
Right.
They're selling you a bag of goods. And you know something? It's not just high-end jobs. It's people who work at Walmart. It's people who work at Burger King. It's people who work at Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Well, I told you about a conversation I had with a friend of mine, okay? Now, this is a person who, as a single person, probably was complaining to me, said that my boy took away her tax write-offs. I said, my boy? She goes, yeah, Donald Trump, okay? All of a sudden, Trump became my boy. But it's along the lines of what you just said. She explained to me how on one job, she's probably making about 75, 80 grand a year. And then at another job she does, she's probably making another 75, 80 grand a year, and she's a single woman, okay? I looked at her right in the face. I said, well, your people, meaning the Democrats, I said, your people think you're rich. Don't blame me. Don't blame me. Don't blame Donald Trump. Your people are telling you that you're rich because you make over $150,000 a year as a single woman in New York City. And yeah, you're going to use tax deductions. Let's say she was writing off certain things that she couldn't write off anymore. And I'm like, my only point in bringing up that story is that they love when the Bernie Sanders of the world, like you said, it doesn't have to just do with rich. It's a lot of people who are not rich, like this girl I'm bringing up. But they say, it's okay, higher taxes are okay, just go get it from them. But they don't like it when they themselves are the them, because there's always going to be somebody making less money than you who is going to point to you as you're the affluent person. So my point is, where does it all end? If we keep down this road, this wealth envy that we have in this country, everybody's worried about what everybody else is making. We're never going to progress as a nation, ever, because it's always pointing the finger. It's always, and it's like you said too, stop with the taxing the rich stuff, okay? We get hosed. Calculate your taxes, man. Especially if you live in New York, New Jersey, California, and the high-tax states. Don't just look at your federal income tax. Look at your property tax bill. Look at your sales tax rate. Look at the gas tax rate. Look at the tolls that you have to pay just to go to New York City. I spend $300 a month on tolls. That's a tax. Okay, so don't think it's just the federal income tax. They're hosing you. Rich people don't care about a $15 an hour or a $15 border crossing at the Lincoln Tunnel. Who do you think they're taking from? You think they care about 80 cents of every gallon of gasoline is a tax? You think they care about that? Who are they hosing? They're hosing you. They're hosing us. So it's like Bernie Sanders is made a career on this class envy. Well, in the meantime, he's rich, which blows my brains.
And also, people think they're getting something for free. Listen to me. I'm going to say it again. Nothing is free. I could remember this. This was something. I thought he was a dud, Mitt Romney. Frankly, I think he was very qualified to be the president, though. I will say that. Great resume. Phenomenal resume. But he was a dud. Mm-hmm. I can remember in the debate, out of frustration, he said this to Barack Obama. I'll never forget it. It was one of the most, I think, salient moments in the debates. He said this out of frustration 3 times. Government does not create jobs. Government does not create jobs. Government does not create jobs. And he's right. And you say, who is he to say that? Well, he was the CEO of a company, a consulting company, a very affluent one. He gets it. He ran a state, Massachusetts. He managed the Olympics. This is a guy, he has an MBA and a JD from Harvard. He understands job creation because he's doing it. He did it. Government, I'm now going to say it. Government does not create jobs.
You want to hear something funny? Christian just commented in. He says, the irony is now Denmark is privatizing its pension plans. Right, Chris? Because you know what they realize and what we're talking about? You can't just keep taking other people's money. You can't do it and think you're going to have a successful society or one that's going to be economically sound. Let's say as time goes by, it's just going to deteriorate and deteriorate as you saddle on more debt and more debt and more. When you can't tax enough, then you go out and borrowing, you're taxing, and you're doing all these things. That Bernie Sanders, let's get back to the beginning of the conversation, that Bernie Sanders wants to impose on us. We are toast, man. Toast. Bernie Sanders doesn't give about the working man, okay? He's a rich guy. He actually said, well, I made $1 million, but I only wrote a book. You made $1 million.
I haven't made $1 million.
I haven't made $1 million, and I work a lot harder than you, Senator Sanders. And by the way, Joe and I work a lot harder than you've ever worked in your life, ever. You've been nothing but an agitator, and then a mayor, and then a congressman. Please, you're a politician. You don't work for a living. You figure out ways of taking other people's money and using it to buy you up votes so people will vote for you. Stop thinking we're all stupid, please, and stop calling us racist, too. Okay, we're telling the truth because that's what Joe and I do about people like you. Enough of him.
Well, there it is. That was the second segment. It was pretty good.
Yeah, well, the veins popping out of my head. Let's give a shout out. Leone's joining us. Jonathan, Christian from Florida. Everybody else, we're at the front line with Joe and Joe. We got Michael here behind the computer joining us in the studio. And yeah, this is a very lively conversation. Now we go from the insane. The absurd, like Senator Sanders, that's my last one for tonight, Vinny, so you go from the absurd, now we're going to go to the insane, okay, while we're at the front line with Joe and Joe Pasillo, Joe Rossinello. Joe, go ahead. Give me the agita that I know is coming right now.
So we're going to go to Minnesota. Basically, a mom, I saw this, to be honest with you, I couldn't even believe it. I couldn't even believe it that this was happening in America. We've covered other segments that are similar to this that have happened outside of the U.S., but now this is happening in America, and I think you should know about it because, frankly, the mainstream media does not cover it. There was a mom in Minnesota, it's St. Louis County, Minnesota. Basically, she is suing the county for usurping her rights, her parental rights, by basically allowing her 17-year-old son to get a sex change operation. This is America.
This is without
her. Is this mic on? Yes. This is America.
This is without her notification.
Basically,
without
a court order of emancipation, because there is such a legal way to do this. You can get a court order of emancipation as a minor. It was not received. And basically, all this went to court, by the way. It's activist judges basically using this kid as a pawn. They could care less about this kid. Also, by the way, there is research, we've said this on other shows, coming out of Johns Hopkins University that said 70 to 80% of minors who have these feelings change their view as adults. So now you're basically causing irreparable damage. You're mutilating this child's body against the parents' wishes without a court order of emancipation. And that's fine.
That's fine.
That's fine. This
fine.
is America.
Right.
I can't even believe this. By the way, this should terrify every parent, every person who has a child that listens to my voice. This should terrify you.
Couple things. We started out this whole conversation tonight talking about the lack of respect for authority in New York City with the cops, and how that lack of respect for authority is being promoted by people like de Blasio, at least through indirectly through his policies and yes, the things that he says. But look at this. This is also a direct assault on authority. Who's the primary authority after God? Your mother and father, your parents, okay? You can't do anything. I remember when we were kids, if you were taking a bus trip to the zoo, remember the Turtleback Zoo? You used to take a bus trip when we were kids up on, what was that, Mount Pleasant Avenue, right? So
Eagle Rock Reservation.
Eagle Rock Reservation. So you had to, everything you did. I won a thing to go to a Yankee game when I was in grammar school, okay? And I had to get a release from my parents. I went to Turtleback Zoo. Get a release from the parents. Everything you did, you had to get a release from your parents. Now you could go get a sex change operation without approval from your parents.
You can't give a kid an aspirin in public school without getting parents' basically permission.
Right. But you could have this child, 17 years old, and if he wants to get a sex change operation, that means he's got the mind of he's really an immature young man, and he needs to grow up. Okay, you could go do that. Of course, this is going to be very, very closely watched by Planned Parenthood and the rest of them, because if this woman sues successfully, okay, and they find that whoever the authority was supposed to have notified the parents, that's going to spill over into parental notification when it comes to abortion also, and they're deathly afraid of that. Okay, that's one of the things where that's still, I think, primarily regulated by the states. That doesn't fall under Roe versus Wade. Each state has the authority to say that a minor has to get approval. I think I'm right on that. If I'm wrong, please correct me. I think I'm right on that. Whereas you'll now have it where if this judge rules in favor of this woman and she wins her lawsuit, well, then parental notification is obviously going to have to be applied. In a lot of different ways. A couple
things. This woman is fit. I want to be clear on that. This is not like, the term fit, meaning these are sane parents. That's number one to know. This was taken to a court of appeals, and they upheld the decision. Once again, the importance of having real and sane judges. This is insane. Insane. Now, she's pushing it to the Supreme Court. Frankly, I think she's going to win, and she's going to take that county to the frigging woodshed.
She should.
In plain English. They're going to pay her because they did not do things. Listen, I didn't go to law school, but at the end of the day, a 17-year-old is a minor. And at the end of the day, you do not have the right to tell parents what they should do, particularly when it comes to mutilating their child's body. So I think she's going to win. I think it may go to the Supreme Court. I think they're going to take a beating.
But they have to get. But in the larger scheme of things, the state here, okay, needs to get a real big smackdown, because what this is ultimately, again, we always wonder, well, what's the end game? The end game is they want this kid to destroy himself, okay?
Well,
because that's what he's a pawn. He's a pawn.
They're making their point. It's just activist judges. They could care less. By the way, you think Barack Obama's going to let his daughter get a sex change operation?
You think he's going to let her get an abortion without him knowing?
A break. This is my whole point. They're full of crap. It's all good unless if it's you. You think Bernie Sanders is going to let his nephew get a sex change operation?
No. This only applies. Look, as far as they're concerned, if you're growing up in one of their households, you're fine, because you're going to learn how to be a loony, liberal, lefty nutbag, okay? And they're going to get what they want, but when they form that child. What they don't want is for you or me or Mike or any of the people out here, they don't want us to form our children the way we want. That's why we spoke a couple weeks ago about the parents. Where was it? In Canada? Again, Jonathan, no disrespect to Canada. The parents were, the daughter got taken out of the home from the parents, because the father did not recognize the pronoun that his daughter wanted to be referred to by, wanted to be referred to like some sort of transgender pronoun or whatever. But this is where the state is going way, way too far. It's okay when they're raising their children the way they want, because, again, they know their children will go up to be lunatics like they are, okay? But all you, particularly, you Jesus lovers out there, okay, they don't want you raising your kid, all right, according to Christian values. They don't want you doing that. They don't want you teaching your kids about right and wrong. You don't want to even, we covered it last week or 2 weeks ago. A teacher gets up in a classroom and says to a bunch of 4 and 5-year-olds, there's no such thing as boys and girls. If we don't push back against this in any way we can, I heard somebody say that, we need to start taking some real drastic action. I don't think, me personally, violence is not going to solve anything. But what will solve it is presence. Presence. Good parents, all right, who are not insane and who know that Joe and Joe are telling the truth about this. You guys, you need to find out what's going on in your public school system that your children are in. And when you find something out that you don't like, then you have to get up and you have to go down there and make your presence felt and say what Joe and I always say we need to start saying to these people. The answer is no.
I'll be honest with you, I don't even think it will work. I know a friend of mine in a town that lives close to me where they had a transgender kid in the school system. And he's a very articulate guy. He's a very smart guy. He went to the school board. He basically pitched his case. He basically communicated it in a very, very intelligent way. He was voted down 9-0. The unions are in the bag. This is the agenda. There is no, I'm going to be honest with you. The school system, this is the agenda. They're basically shoving it down the American students' throat, whether you like it or not. And frankly, the only option is this. You either homeschool your kid or you send them to private school. Or people get their head out of their you-know-what and vote these people out. And that's why we have this show. And that's why we're raising our voice and communicating our point. This is not healthy. I am very sorry. If you're an adult and you want to mutilate your body, I feel sorry for you. But you can do that. You're an adult. You are not going to do that to a child. And frankly, if the government is behind that, my answer as a responsible parent is this. I will not put my kid in that situation.
Right.
I will not put my kid in that school. If that means they have to be taught in their house, if that means they go to private school, which is what me and my wife are doing, that is exactly what we will do. And frankly, Joe, this is the people, I don't know what is in their head. I don't. This isn't just insanity.
At some point, you want to say to all those parents that would allow this or have no problem with it or who are indifferent to it, if you want to send your kid to that school, then you go ahead. And if you want this to happen, but you have to send, and this is part of the dilemma that we're in. This is why the politics all matter, okay? Who we vote for, particularly on a state level. How do they fund the public education system? Through your property tax. When you take your kid out of that school, okay, and send your child to a private school or homeschool, and you have to pay that additional expense, they're laughing at you in the public school establishment because you're still paying the property tax.
You have no
No, but that's why you said political action is what's needed, particularly on a state level, in a mess of a state like Minnesota or New Jersey or New York, where we have to start demanding of our state representatives, okay? I do not want to pay that portion of the property tax. I don't want to pay any property tax at all, but I don't want to pay any portion of the property tax that goes to the school system. I'm not paying it because I'm not going to have my child in that school. I'm going to take my kid, I'm going to send them to a private school. And on a state level, I don't know why.
I wish that was the case.
They won't do it. They won't do it. Like, people will not tell these politicians. In other words, they won't tell them that. They rail against property taxes, but they don't do anything about it. And the other thing, too, is because of the fact that, unfortunately, and this is a whole other conversation for another time, you have many people that have a voice in how much property taxes are who don't own property. There's a fundamental injustice here. If you don't own property, you have nothing to say about what the property taxes should be. And that's the way it should be. Property owners should vote on what the property tax should be. You see how fast this would change. My larger point is that they laugh at us. They laugh at us because you made the point very clearly, all right? I know you're going to do this, all right? We're going to send our kids, they're going to go to private school, okay? And yes, they're going to go to Catholic school. So it'll be grammar school, high school, and then wherever they end up going to college. That's the way it's going to be. You are still going to get hosed for the additional expense of property tax because you own a home, and you're going to have to pay for your child's education. And that's not fair, is my point.
Given. And that's why people have to vote these people out. But sadly, the culture has embraced this. I don't understand it. Maybe I'm the weird one. Maybe.
No.
I don't get it. I simply don't. But this is the direction we're going. This is the direction that people are comfortable with. A large swath of them. And frankly, I absolutely disagree with it. It horrifies me. And it should horrify you. It should horrify you that a state in this country, in the United States of America, could tell parents, Go F yourself. We're letting your 17-year-old son mutilate his body without your consent. That should horrify you.
If you can't see something wrong with, even if
it
you are a
should
parent,
horrify you. And frankly, something's wrong there. Yet people, they just keep voting. They're comfortable with it. They have no problem with it.
Right.
It scares the hell out of me. My answer to that, my kid's not going to public school. Ever. I don't believe in it. I don't believe in it. And I'm going to tell you why. I want you to teach the subject and nothing more. I'm not interested in your political ideology. I'm not interested in you forming my child.
Not interested in your social engineering.
My child,
right?
Because I'm the parent. And frankly, for decades, that was the American way. It is no longer. Therefore, I am opting out. I am opting out from the start. And if you're opting in, you should be fully aware, eyes wide open to what is going on. And we're not making this up. This is not covered in Fox or in CNN, but it's going on. If you look, you will find it, and it should scare you.
To scare you to death. Let's give a quick shout out. Christian made a good point. And Christian, I remember that he said, Joe, no 10th place trophies back then. Remember we were talking earlier? Yeah, didn't get a trophy for coming in 10th place back then. Sarah's checking in with us. Sarah, thanks for joining the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo and Joe Rossinello every Sunday night. She said, I think you guys are right on that. Thank you, Sarah, for having our back. Christian, Jonathan called Justin Theroux a turd. And that's from a Canadian, so it wasn't the Americans. Vinny, it wasn't the Americans calling him that. That was a Canadian calling him a turd. So anyway, we got the front line with Joe and Joe. That was a pretty good conversation. We had to have a little. Listen, it ended on unfortunately a note where we're like this about this public school establishment, but we really, like Joe said, we have to keep our eyes open. We have to keep our ears open. We have to hold these people's feet to the fire as best we could, and we're going to keep spreading the word. We're growing our audience. Thanks to all of you. Thanks to Jonathan up in Canada, Joe Campo. So we're definitely getting the word out, and people are starting to respond to the front line with Joe and Joe. So we're going to be doing this every Sunday night. Every Sunday night, 8 o'clock, we're going live, and then you could catch the show on our Facebook page at the front line with Joe and Joe, and also on HolyFaith Media on YouTube, which Jonathan Ross will be posting it over there. Comment, like it, hate it, disagree with us, whatever the case may be. But by all means, share it, and share it with your friends. Let your friends know about the conversation at the front line. That's what's been going on. That's what will continue to go on. In the meantime, Joe and I, we're just going to keep telling the truth, because that's all we can do. Keep telling the truth.
And also, for Artie's sake, comment on the books. Yeah, I actually like the books. I'm going to go on record. I'm going to say I like them. But if you don't, say, let us know. It's a new look for Joe and Joe.
So let us know. In the meantime, our conversation is your conversation, and that conversation, that's going on everywhere. So we'll see you next week at 8 o'clock.
Amen.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome to the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, joined as always by Joe Rossinello. Once more, dear friends, let us go into the breach.